Welcome back to Pittsburgh Sports Live. This is Pittsburgh Golf Now. I'm Matt Gajtka with Zach Weiss, and it's our par 4 video for a second week. 4 shots at the golf world, and starting Zach locally, our first ever live event coverage at PGN occurred over the weekend. In case you missed it there on the website, Zach had the story. Mike Darnay had a wonderful photo gallery as well. I actually played in the Pittsburgh City Amateur at the Bob O'Connor course in Schenley Park. Big thanks to Eric Kalina, the head pro and director of golf up there, made us feel at home. And I got to say, his efforts, Zach, definitely paid off too, because they had a nice increase in turnout. They had 5 separate flights. They couldn't finish all of them. The juniors and the women had to be cut short to 9 holes because of weather. But we had a very deserving champion. John Ross shot a couple under par. The only player under par on a very blustery day. One of the tougher rounds I've had to play in terms of weather conditions. I know that much. And typically a course that you can go low, but didn't really see that on Saturday. And, well, I think in some cases it was a pretty good reminder that the weather always plays a big role in this sport.
Sure, Matt, and I think you and I kind of got our bearings together earlier in the week. You played a practice round, I played a familiarization round, and it definitely played a lot different from Monday. The green speeds were a little bit slower. Of course, there was the wind, which you mentioned. But honestly, the saving grace was we'll take the wind over the rain that we probably should have gotten that didn't come until later. So the fact that most of it got in is very, very commendable. Again, credits to Eric and everybody over at the first tee for getting everything in such great condition and done for the most part. For 71 golfers to sign up and for 68 to tee it up when normally those numbers are in the low to mid 50s, that really speaks to the effort that specifically Eric as well as others have made to make sure that this event gets promoted properly and to make sure that a variety of participants get put into the field. And like you said, John hadn't played the course before. For a Peters Township standout, he'd only seen the Bob 2 months prior, and he'd kind of been quarantining back and forth between his parents' house and his fiance's parents' house. So kind of a tale of 2 quarantines, and made sure he got in within 2 weeks period. And lo and behold, yeah, he played 4 through 7 for the first time, but couldn't really tell in scorecard given that he played subpar, like you said. He played pretty well by all accounts, and the most unselfish thing he did was when I asked him, hey, what was the highlight of your round? He deferred to his 2 friends that actually brought him to the course. He said, oh, ho hum, this is really my first competitive round of the year. But he decided to place the spotlight on both of his friends, his playing partners, since you were able to request to some extent who could be in your group to an extent, which was nice for the most part. But it seemed like they really meshed well. They helped him in some tough spots. They really teamed up together well, and for them was also last hurrah because one of the friends is moving to Florida. So a good feels all around for that trio. Good feels all around for most of the guys and girls participating in the event. You really, really couldn't ask for more. And again, to get 18 and I guess in the juniors and the women's division 9 in is very, very commendable.
Not Ross's first win. You mentioned Zach from Peters Township High School and also a varsity player at Loyola University in Maryland, but he hadn't won an event going back to 2011. He tied for first at the WPGA Public Links, also won a junior event as a high schooler. So it's been a little bit for Ross, who's been out of college for a while, but good on him. The big name, though, Zach couldn't play. Sean Knapp, the 2017 USGA senior amateur winner and also 2-time winner of the City Amateur tournament. He couldn't make it. Wrist issue has been bugging him for over a year now, according to Eric Kalina at the course. So no Knapp. That made it wide open. We saw Trent Carlick, though, the former RMU golfer. He shot 3 over 70. Really, Zach, he had a quadruple bogey on number 1, one of the shortest, maybe one of the easiest holes on the course. So he could have easily been up there without that, but that's golf. One shot can send you adrift, especially if it goes out of bounds. And I was also impressed by a couple of senior players also were in the mix, tied for 5th there. Dan Vader included in that mix. He was a 2001 champion of the championship event proper. Also, Nick Gordon, 1 over 68. He was leader in the clubhouse for a while. Pittsburgher, actually played hockey. I looked this up this week for UMass Lowell, and then played golf for UMass Lowell too. So multi-sport athlete there, and he rallied with a fine back 9. Zach, if you haven't played this Bob O'Connor course, I'm talking to the fans here, but I know you can chip in. You played it quite a bit. It's right near your home there in Squirrel Hill. It's got its quirks for sure. It's under 5,000 yards. It's short. It's a par 67, no par 5s, just a couple of par 4s where you really have to hit a driver. But I find it a fun course, and I want to get back out there more often. That's my takeaway from participating in the championship and also playing that practice round with you last week.
So the Bob O'Connor golf course at Schenley Park definitely presents its certain set of challenges, from the first tee where you feel like you're going to drive the green right away to where you have to feel that need for an iron. A lot of guys truly acclaim that it is a wood kind of a course, with the exception for a couple of holes. It does present its Western Pennsylvania golf quirks with those hills, namely number 8, number 17, where you're walking up those big hills. Kind of reminds you, a little teaser of your article soon to come, Matt, about Moon Golf Club, about number 4, the par 4 that it feels like a par 3 that's a par 4 just because of its hilly nature. So there's definitely challenges, from taming 14 green, which you barely breathe on the ball, and if it's above the hole, just cross your fingers and hope for the best, even to number 10, the beautiful view of the Cathedral of Learning as the nice little backdrop as you're teeing off. Even number 15, where you kind of can't really hit anything but one particular shot, where you have those double fences and the trees guarding the fence as well. There's definitely a lot of quirks that make it feel a little bit longer than it is, but in a sense, it's also kind of a shorter long course. So in a sense, it lets you work on your second shots. And you hear a lot of PGA Tour guys talk about how it's a second shot course. This truly is a second shot course, because it kind of at that point is a pitch and putt. So you're getting acclimated to your short game. You're getting familiar with some greens that some are harsher than others. Some provide more tests than others. And that true Western Pennsylvania feel, where shots like what you're hitting coming in on number, 13, where you're hitting a second shot that's severely uphill, or maybe you're adding a club to your arsenal or a second club to your arsenal just because of the distance. Plus you have the rate as well. So you're playing maybe $16 for 18 holes. That's less than $1 a hole. It's a similar value to other courses kind of further along in the city and surrounding areas. So it provides that homely feel. It provides a nice pick and play if you can just get over the quirks, which Western Pennsylvania golf itself is full of quirks. So why not play the Bob O'Connor golf course, named after, of course, the late great Pennsylvania mayor Bob O'Connor? Just a great chance to pick up and play. It's a friendly walk. It's a round where you should probably get done within 3 to 3.5 hours, if that. So it's a nice, easy play where you kind of get it in quick as well.
I have a feeling I'm going to be reviewing that course at some point. And as we mentioned, Eric was such a gracious host. I'm sure he wouldn't mind showing me a couple of his favorite holes there at the course. You brought up the price, obviously, and it's the only course in Pittsburgh City proper. And it's got all of that atmosphere of Oakland, of Schenley Park. If you like it up there, I'm sure you'll like to play it as well. Okay, let's move on to shot number 2 and talk some national golf news here on the par 4. Zach, late-breaking Sunday night after the PGA Tour pros got done playing in Connecticut at the Travelers Championship, the Associated Press and reporter Doug Ferguson broke the news that Fox is essentially reneging on its contract with the USGA, not in the literal sense, but they and the USGA decided to just call it quits almost midway through, not even midway through a 12-year deal to cover the USGA's championships, whether it be the U.S. Open, the highest profile event, the U.S. Women's Open, the Senior Open, the Senior Amateur, the U.S. Amateur. All that was under Fox's purview for the past, 5 years? It dated back to 2015. Still 7 to go on it. Now NBC will step in and take over the USGA package, as it had for about 20 years, from the mid-'90s through the middle part of this past decade. First of all, very surprising for me, Zach, but once I got to know the details, Fox didn't want to go up against its NFL coverage, namely this September, with the U.S. Open being pushed back. And, of course, Fox having that package and it being the crown jewel of its sports presentation. I understand that, but also part of me is disappointed because, in theory at least, it's only 1 year that the U.S. Open was going to be in September. So for me, I liked having a different voice in Fox on golf coverage, along with the 2 traditional ones with CBS and NBC. So for me, the TV coverage is going to be lesser with less voices in the pool there. But maybe for Fox, it just wasn't a very good fit. Who knows?
Fox kind of got their hand caught in the cookie jar. I think a 12-year deal is really an unconventional length for a kind of a deal. And when you're in year 5 of that, you have the equity of the NFL, which may or may not have a season as it is. You have a Women's Open that's going to be played in December, which is smack dab in the middle of playoff contention, as well as just a really weird time for everybody to hike it to Texas, which of course still is a very much COVID-affected state. Here we are about to turn the calendar to July. So a lot of unknowns there, and I think that Fox itself saw itself as October is World Baseball, World Series. You have the NFL, which of course has Sunday on lockdown, and really Sunday of a major is not going to get the numbers unless Tiger Woods is winning, and his back has still been very bulky. So you don't really want to gamble on one person's success or failures and being able to broadcast that. So I think Fox made a conscientious decision. It seems like, at least publicly, the split is amicable, and you can only hope that NBC, which has so much experience, kind of at least gives the major a unique feel with more voices, more professional opinions, and maybe takes some of what Fox did and makes it their own, or at least puts some new graphics up that can at least provide it special. I think what Fox had was kind of niche in respect, but towards the end, I think that niche made it work. So if they can maybe get some course knowledge, even if they can get a Faxon or a Hans or somebody like that, even if you can get a Ben Crenshaw or somebody like that that's in course design, I think that'd be a very positive addition for NBC that could at least differentiate the week and make it special. I mean, it's the United States Open. It's the week of golf that needs to be most celebrated in America, and it's already on delay as it is. So that gives you even more of an opportunity to sit down, huddle down, see what works, see what doesn't, and make some decisions.
I already liked NBC better than CBS. Just in general, they seem to be a little more forward thinking, even if both broadcasts are pretty traditional. I do like your point about adding an architectural mind. Give me more of an insight on why these holes are built the way they are, especially at a U.S. Open where strategy and tactics are so paramount to the action. One thing I am looking forward to, maybe they'll bring back that old Yanni theme music. Was it Celebration of Man or whatever it was, that sweeping orchestral tune that would open up all the U.S. Open broadcasts on NBC. So that was always the signal for me in my Pavlovian dog brain that it was time to watch some U.S. Open golf. And good point by you also that NBC goes from having the Open Championship in Britain, now not having it this year. So at least they get a major out of the deal. In this case, they come out essentially even. So that's it for shot 2. Let's go on to shot 3 and the PGA Tour just this past weekend. Typically, Zach, it's a birdie fest up in Cromwell, Connecticut, formerly the Greater Hartford Open, now the Travelers Championship at TPC River Highlands. And there was a lot of firepower at the head of that field for a while. Phil Mickelson making a charge early. Mackenzie Hughes came out of the gate with a 60. That's 10 under par on that par 70 layout. But in the end, it was Dustin Johnson collecting PGA Tour win number 21, and now the 13th consecutive season in which he's won at least once. But it had been 14 months, maybe even 15 months, I think, since he won the WGC Mexico last year. So Dustin had the knee strain. He said it flared up, actually, before the Colonial a couple of weeks ago. That might explain his rustiness coming off that COVID break. But for me, I'm happy to see Dustin get back in the winner's circle. I think he's a compelling figure, even if personality-wise, he's pretty darn dull, we'll put it that way. But his game is anything but dull, and he's one of the game's true stars. So I'm happy from that aspect of it. And I'm also I'm enjoying so far the first 3 tournaments because it feels like guys are going low and they're lighting it up. I don't know what to attribute it to. Courses, lack of crowds, guys just eager to get out there. But the combined winning score in the first 3 tournaments here is what, 55 under par or something like that. So I guess that fits in with the DJ type of a golf course too.
You would think so, certainly, but the first thing you think of when you think of Dustin Johnson is the advantage he possesses off the tee. And this week, he actually only hit 35 of 56 fairways. So he was actually 83rd in strokes gained off the tee. So it explains why he was tied for 79th at the end of the first round. And I think a lot of people wrote him off. But like you said, the advantageous thing about Cromwell, Connecticut is the low scoring. I think you're used to seeing a lot of new guys or first timers, or even someone like a Kenny Perry who got that kind of 2009 win that got a lot of headlines because he lived with the same host family for 21 years, and lo and behold, now he gets a win for the family that he promised them. So really for Dustin Johnson, it came down to the rest of his game, and the iron play was noticeably improved, and the putter, which is kind of come and go, showed signs of that 2016 form towards the summertime when now he was 6th in strokes gained putting for the week, and that saved him big time. When he gets a bogey on 7, he's about a putt of 2 feet's worth of break at least on number 8, and he jars it. He didn't get dazed or phased, at least not outwardly, by the weird Woody Austin water shot that he kind of had to deal with. Wasn't the best look at coming out of the shot there, but he was still able to get a par and he was able to save it. And it's shots and moments like that where when you have such a small deficit, where Will Gordon has no reason to be knocking on the doorstep, Mackenzie Hughes, after the first round, kind of squandered that second round. Brendan Todd kind of shot himself out of it. Kevin Streelman's fired a million rounds in the 60s at that course. So really, Dustin Johnson could have lost that in a numerous variety of ways, but with his number one weapon gone and his game still not completely all the way together, he did what winners do, and he figured it out. And so much for the not being in the top 5 statistic that came last week. That lasted all of 1 week. Dustin Johnson never seems to have a pulse. And as much as journalists might not like that because it doesn't give them much color, it shows that he's unflappable in almost any condition. And that puts him in any tournament. That puts him in different courses and tracks that might not suit his game. If he's not hitting the fairway, what happens? I think you saw his answer. He was able to put things together. And even when it looked like a missed cut was going to maybe not extend his stay, he found a way to put the pieces together, figure it out, and do enough to win. I think I wrote him off, to be honest, too, just because I thought the play was not great. I thought his putting looked suspect. The injury happened, and of course, injuries, everybody has a different timetable for recovery. So I thought this might be the year we don't see the win, but I guess not. I mean, good for Dustin Johnson. It really bodes well for him moving forward. And again, another low score and another, I guess we talked about him last week, but Bryson DeChambeau has been double figures in pretty much every single course. He's the leading under par player since the tour has returned. And now we're getting towards Memorial in a couple weeks where he's able to get a good chance to score well. He's playing this week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic at Detroit Golf Club. So there's a really, really good chance for him to score. A lot of top guys, so to speak, are taking some weeks off this week. So it'll be interesting to see who prevails this week and if Nate Lashley can defend his championship.
Yeah, it could be a little bit more open this week. It seemed like the big guns were out to start, as you would imagine, sans Tiger Woods, but for the most part, everybody who was anybody was at these first 3 tournaments. And one more thing back to DJ, you made a great point about him scrambling out of the side of the penalty area there, the side of the pond, made a nice par there. Also made a great bogey on that par 5 where he hit out of bounds too. He actually birdied with his second ball because he hit his tee ball just barely out onto those train tracks that Phil visited earlier in the week. But you know what? When it came down to it, 18th hole, he played it just like he played the 18th at Oakmont in 2016, where he hammered a drive and hit a perfect approach. Didn't make the putt this time, but he didn't need it to win. There was absolutely no drama once he was on the green there with that little flip wedge he had in after the 350-yard bomb down the middle. Okay, Zach, you brought it up. This week coming up for the PGA Tour at the Detroit Golf Club, century-old place. Good to see golf back in Michigan at the highest level of the sport. So for shot number 4, we'll talk about the Rocket Mortgage, but more in the context of COVID-19. We've had 2 more positive tests since the end of the Travelers Championship on Sunday night. Dylan Fratelli, the South African golfer, and also Harris English now testing positive too. So I'm still not sure there's reason to consider shutting things down or even perhaps looking at the schedule and saying, well, maybe we can knock out a week or 2 here. The Workday Open, of course, the Workday Charity Classic, that's not really necessary, but it looks like they're still going to play it. We had 7 players sit out last week, just a couple of positive tests, others with precautions. So I give the PGA Tour a pretty good grade. Jay Monahan, the commissioner, came down this past week and said, we're taking this very seriously. We're going to reinforce it. We're going to try to be tougher than we were the first couple of weeks. So all things considered, I think it's going about as well as you can imagine. We're talking about hundreds of tour pros, hundreds of caddies, coaches, physios, all the rest. And we've still had in the vicinity of, 10 positive tests. So I think that's pretty proportional to the population at large.
Sure, Matt. And I think that with COVID, you can only plan for so much. And it was a matter of time that they knew results like these were going to come. I understand that Alan Shipnuck, who of course is a known golf writer, wrote a piece earlier this past week saying that it's time for golf to stop. But if golf stops, then all of sports stop. And golf is really, from the moment that the first round of the players was the last round of that part of the golf season and the players got the glorified off season, Jay Monahan, the player advisory board, and the other constituents within this puzzle have all really teamed together and tried to find situations that work. Everything has been dwindled, from golfers, support staff, even the media. There were pretty much 12 reporters that are on the grounds outside of television partners. So every bubble, every circle is being consistently limited. The big test will be Ohio with these 2 weeks. I think the one thing that will help is players, for the most part, will not have to travel those 2 weeks, where yes, you're having fans coming in and the extended measures, but a lot of these golfers will have played Muirfield Village the first time around at the Workday Charity Open. I think you're going to probably see a couple more positive tests this week. It's just how situations are from traveling, from contact, from other people not adhering to proper restrictions, to maybe just the players having a momentary lapse, which happens. They're human. But I think that Jay Monahan's outlined, look, we're going to support you as best as we can. Just follow these precautions. If you're a player and you test positive, as long as you're wearing your mask, you're not shaking hands, you're not signing autographs, we'll help you out. Here's up to $100,000 in aid. And the caddies, which often get overlooked in these things, similarly being supported with $10,000, which there have been, 4 caddies that have now tested positive between the PGA and Korn Ferry tours. So that's a very big number in and of itself. And of course, somebody like a Webb Simpson, who is scheduled to be in the field this week despite his sibling testing positive for COVID last week. It wasn't him. He's tested negative in every subsequent test since. I guess we'll find out more when he has his pre-tournament press conference on Wednesday. So that'll be something that'll be worth watching. But again, we're just now getting into double digits. Florida as a state's had 9,000 positive tests pretty much every day for the last handful of days. We live in Pittsburgh, Allegheny County. They're just getting into the 90s right now. So yes, it's a small numerator. It's still a numerator. It's still a heartbeat. It's still players and caddies and support that people still absolutely care about. And it should be taken seriously, but it's on the tour to continue to adhere to these standards. Even Rory McIlroy, who was a spoken critic at the Players, who said, if you have too many positive tests, it's time to shut it down. He's walked back on the remarks because I think he understands how serious this is taken. And I don't think the players want to sit this out, because if you sit this out anymore, another 2-3 months, what are you going to have left? A major? Ryder Cup's looking like it's going to be a 2021 affair as it is. You've already had the Open Championship, which has been canceled, which is why you have Ohio playing, part of why Ohio is playing 2 weeks in a row to begin with. The first one being, of course, Illinois canceling the John Deere, and of course the Open Championship week now being filled by the Memorial Tournament. So you have so many moving pieces as it is, and so many men and women that have put forth countless hours of blood, sweat, and tears to try to get this to work. Now, if the numbers continue to go up and you have X amount of withdrawals, what that number is, I don't know what that number is. They don't know what that number is. And you know what? Right now, that's fine. They don't have to worry about that right now as long as the players are adhering to caution. The big test, again, comes in 2 weeks at Memorial when you have the fans and that bubble gets expanded even more. And if you have fans subsequent after that, then you have a different bubble you have to adhere to. But the big test is in 2 weeks' time at Memorial. You get through the Rocket Mortgage Classic this week, and hopefully the cases are 0, or if at worst, maybe 1 or 2, with the players having, or caddies showing no symptoms. And of course, then you have 2 weeks in Ohio where you look at Tiger Woods probably making his debut at Memorial. Of course, that's not official, but he's a creature of habit. But for the most part, you have players that are going to double up. Maybe the higher tier guys will just show up from Memorial, but it'll be a good chance to see how far this has come as we hit the 1 month mark at this point. But I give the tour a passing grade 2. It's just a matter of, can this be consistently contained? It seems like there's reason to be cautiously optimistic, but the talks of suspension, I think, are a bit far-fetched at this point.
I am concerned about the Memorial at Muirfield Village in Dublin, Ohio, having fans. We'll see if that happens. I'm not sure, considering especially that the Hall of Fame game for the NFL in Canton has been canceled for the year, or I guess postponed, pushed back to 2021. I'm not sure that bodes well, but again, golf is a different beast. That's why golf is back out there, and short of NASCAR, that's why nobody else is back out there yet. All right, Zach, thank you so much for your input here. We'll look ahead to next week. We'll talk more about that situation in the coming weeks. As you said, it gets more and more pertinent as it gets closer and closer. Also, look on PGN this week. In addition to our City Amateur coverage from the weekend, we have my first off the tee for Monday, a little rules controversy on the course. That was interesting. We'll see if once you read it, whether you would have handled that better than I did. I think that's probably a pretty good bet for some of you golf nuts out there. Also, my review of Moon Golf Club, one of my favorite spots to play in the greater Pittsburgh area. And we'll have a special equipment review, more of a technique review, and you'll see what that is, again, later in the week on PGN, in addition to all of our local, amateur, and professional event coverage. For Zach Weiss, I'm Matt Gajtka on the PGN Par 4. Talk to you next time on Pittsburgh Sports Live.